Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what might be a company's most powerful secret weapon, its production system. We're going to dig into the hidden principles that create a massive competitive advantage, one that's often impossible to copy.
So let's just jump right in with a really fascinating puzzle. For decades, right, companies have been sending their best and brightest to study the legendary Toyota production system. They map out every single process, they document every tool, and yet almost nobody can actually replicate its incredible success. So what's going on here? Why is it so hard to copy?
Well, the answer isn't something you can see. It's not in the machinery or the factory layout. I mean, anyone can buy the same equipment, right? The real advantage, that secret ingredient that makes the whole thing tick, is, well, it's completely invisible. And look, this isn't because people aren't trying hard enough. It's because there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what a production system really is. So if it's not the stuff you can see, the tools, the layout, then what's the crucial missing piece of the puzzle? Okay, so let's dig into how most people think about this. When you hear production system, you probably picture something pretty mechanical, right? Something very straightforward. And, on the surface, this model makes total sense. You've got your inputs, like raw materials, they go through some kind of process with machines, and boom, out comes a final product. It's simple, it's clean, and it feels complete. But and this is the big but, that simple, classical view, that's exactly where so many attempts to copy success just completely fall apart. It does a great job of explaining what happens in the process, but it totally misses the why. So what do companies do? They grab the popular toolkit, right? They implement lean to cut waste, they put up Kanban boards, they start doing Kaizen events for continuous improvement. They think, okay, we've got the tools, so we've got the system. But here's the thing, that's like buying all the best cooking gear and thinking you're a Michelin star chef. These are just the tools, not the engine, the philosophy that actually makes them work. And that right there brings us to the real secret. A production system isn't just some set of practices you can copy and paste, no way. At its heart, it is a guiding philosophy. It's this invisible principle that shapes every single decision. Okay, this comparison between Ford and Toyota is just fantastic at showing the difference. When Toyota's engineers first came over and saw Ford's factories, they weren't just wowed by the speed of the assembly line. What they really saw was a ton of waste, what they call muda, piles of parts, constant rework. But then they had this light bulb moment. Their real inspiration didn't even come from a factory. It came from watching American supermarkets. They saw how shelves were replenished with this incredible efficiency, but only when something was actually bought. It was a pull system, not a push system. So that philosophy, that core idea of zero waste, became the actual DNA of their entire system. It led to these totally radical innovations, like the and-on cord. Think about this. It gave any worker the power to stop the entire production line to fix a problem right then and there. That's huge. It meant quality was being built in from the start, not just inspected for at the end. And it completely changed the game, treating workers not just as a pair of hands, but as intelligent problem solvers. And what this all boils down to is pretty simple. A system produces exactly what it's designed to produce. If your guiding philosophy is just low cost, well, that's what you get. Low-cost products, but probably with all the waste and rework that comes with it. But if your philosophy is world-class quality, then every single part of the system is going to organize itself to deliver on that promise. The output is a perfect mirror of the philosophy you put in. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? How do you take this idea and turn it into a practical blueprint for designing your own system from that core philosophy outwards? Well, any truly great system has to master three key things. You've got the demand side, that's knowing your customers and what they want. Then you've got the supply side, managing your materials. And the production system itself, its job is to be the smart, flexible bridge that connects those two. And the order here is absolutely critical. You don't start by picking tools off a shelf like, oh, we'll do some lean and maybe some Kanban. No, you have to start by defining your core philosophy. You have to ask the big questions. What do we really stand for? What's the one thing we will never compromise on? Once you have that, then you design the system to serve that philosophy. And only then do you create the measurements to make sure you're staying on track no matter what happens with supply or demand. But what about the flip side? What happens when a system is built without that guiding philosophy, when it's just a rigid set of rules? Well, let's look at a short but really powerful cautionary tale. So picture this, a brand new factory. It's got all the latest, greatest technology. And even better, it's built right next to a mine, its main source of raw materials. I mean, on paper, it's the perfect setup. A system perfectly designed for one very specific, very stable set of conditions. But we all know the world doesn't stand still, right? Over time, the quality of the ore from that mine started to drop. And of course, new, better technology came out. Suddenly, those perfect conditions the factory was designed for, they just weren't there anymore. And the result was, well, pretty much inevitable. The factory had to close. Why? Because the system was just a static machine. It was too rigid. It couldn't adapt. It was perfectly designed to operate, but it was never designed to evolve. So, could this have been avoided? Oh, absolutely. Imagine if that factory had been built on a guiding philosophy, let's say a relentless focus on producing the highest quality steel possible. It would have acted completely differently. It would have been constantly searching for ways to improve its raw materials, maybe blending ores, or it would have been pushing to update its technology to maintain that quality standard. That philosophy would have been the driving force for it to adapt and survive. And this really is the ultimate takeaway here. Your production system can't be a static blueprint you just laminate and hang on the wall. You have to treat it like a living, breathing part of your organization. It has to be designed to constantly learn, to adapt, and to evolve. Which brings us right back to where we started, with Toyota. I mean, their legendary system didn't just pop up overnight. It took them over 2 decades to perfect it. And even today, they are still constantly improving it. You just can't shortcut that. You can't replicate decades of deep cultural evolution by just copying the tools you see on the surface. So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Every single organization out there has a production system, whether it's officially written down or not. And the most powerful part of that system isn't what you can see on a flowchart. It's the unwritten, unspoken philosophy that guides every decision every single day. So the real question to ask yourself is, what's yours?